My friends, we are going to grow and get better together. This is not about me. This is about us. Welcome to Win Today with Johnny Martin. It's your boy Johnny Martin with you. Very, very excited to be back in studio, as always, with my good friends from Cloud9 Marketing Group, Mr. Dylan Pilon. What's going on?
How you doing?
Life is good, man. Thanks for being here, as always.
Thank you.
And also joined in studio by our good friend from Seven Roads Media, Donnie Cav. What's up, Donnie?
Good morning.
Good morning to you. Back again for another episode of Win Today. I'm excited to share with you all today. The topic of today's episode is write your own story. We're going to get into that in a few minutes, but before we do, I want a quick shout out and thank you to a good friend of ours, Marty, down in New Orleans, Louisiana, the Big Easy at Melbas. Eat at Melbas.com. If you are ever in the New Orleans area, in Louisiana, period, you got to get down to Melbas. One of the oldest, most authentic and original Southern food joints in the Big Easy. If you like po' boys or you never had them, Melbas is where to go. If you like jambalaya, you never had it, Melbas is where to go. And not to mention, Marty is a dude that has been a huge supporter of the work that we've been doing for a long time now.
For sure.
And just a beautiful guy who will definitely treat everybody that walks through the door like family. This is not a tourist trap. This is down home, authentic Southern food. Served in a great environment, and if you really want to get a taste for New Orleans, both literally and figuratively, you got to go into Melbas.
We'll link it in the show notes.
And we will I definitely want to do that because he's just been an unbelievably supportive guy to us. Yep. And by the time this show airs, I will have either be on the way down to New Orleans or have just returned from New Orleans, so I'll definitely be going in to see Marty at Melbas.
Can't wait. I didn't realize that we were going with you, John.
Well, actually, Don, I didn't want to bring this up now.
Accept.
You're not. Well played.
See you soon, Marty.
Yes, Marty, I will see you soon. Donnie and Dylan may not, but I will.
We'll be there in spirit.
So you know what would be cool maybe is if we did I could bring the Zoom in and do a little something with Marty right from the restaurant.
Yeah, that would be great.
I'd love to learn how to maybe make a po' boy or some of the jambalaya or
do some food critiquing live on.
Yeah, I love it all, man. And Southern food is phenomenal too, so I would definitely like to do that.
Maybe he could send some up too. We'd love to have some up here.
He did send me some stuff, but
oh, that's right for Mardi Gras, right?
Yeah, he sent
or Fat Tuesday.
There's a famous, I forget what they call it down in Louisiana.
Is it king cake?
That's exactly what it is. The king cakes. Did you get one?
I did not.
Well, here's the thing. He sent two of them up, two huge ones.
One was surely for me.
Yeah, I was supposed to share. But
although I have to say, last time he sent us a package, got the shirt. I think we got a couple shirts,
some mugs,
yeah,
some
stickers.
beads.
So yeah, it was good.
Yeah, man.
Thanks, Marty.
So good looking out. As we go here, folks, going to get right into the episode. We're going to talk today about the notion of writing your own story, and every single person has a story in life, and so the goal for me for today is those of you that are listening, I want you to be able to take a real good look at how you've written yours so far, and if there's anything about this story that you want to change. For me, this is something that I have a chance because I've taken this on as a huge passion and project for me. This is one of the biggest emphasis of the speaking that I do to high schools, colleges, and corporations. And even when I meet with smaller groups, this notion of writing your own story. We all were born into a situation that right, wrong, or indifferent, we had no control over. But as we start to get older and we learn a little bit more about this crazy journey called life, we now can take ownership over how we fill the pages of our book. You've heard me talk about that in previous episodes. One of the biggest sources of passion for me and motivation, but also one of my biggest frustrations has been that it's taken me almost 40 years to figure this out in that this story of our life is mine. to write. And yes, I'm at the point now where, hell yeah, I want to do it big. There's no ceiling whatsoever except for the one that I have continued to create for myself. So those of you that are listening right now, if it resonates with any of you, so many times in our lives, we create obstacles that do not need to be created. And so over the last couple of years of my life, man, there is no ceiling. There is no bar that's too high, especially as it relates to the stuff that I'm passionate about, the stuff that I define as my purpose. This, excuse me, the stuff that gets me up in the morning and gets me excited to continue to do this work. This podcast for me is an extension of my purpose, extension of my passion. So yeah, I'm going to do it big. I'm going to do it as big as I can possibly do it. There's no ceiling except for the one that I've always created for myself. Think about your own lives, those of you that are listening. I guarantee there are things you can think about right now that you know you have let stand in your way. Not because you couldn't overcome them, not because you didn't have the ability, not because of other people, but maybe they were just tough, or maybe you didn't think you could. And the other biggest takeaway for me in writing my own story is that I no longer fear failure. There were so many moments in my life where I feared failure. And as I look back on my journey of all of the things that I walked away from or made excuses for, one of the biggest reasons for that was fear of failure. I didn't believe in myself enough to take the chance and fail. So for me, it was easier to talk around it. And that would explain why I didn't want to do it. And it was all bullshit. I had an enormous fear and insecurity growing up in my life and even into adulthood about failing. So it was easier to be half in or just try it a little bit. Because then I couldn't say I really failed. It wasn't that important to me. And I don't believe there are any accidents in life. I'm blessed about where I'm at today. I have an amazing family, beautiful kids. I have a life that I'm beginning to create every day that I'm very, very grateful for. But I'm not done. I'm not resting in it. I'm not comfortable in it. I'm happy, very happy, but I'm not content. And I'm okay with the discomfort because I'm no longer afraid to fail. And that's allowed me to take chances that I've never, ever taken before in my life. I've learned to change perspective. And I think it's important as we look around us to realize that every person we come across has a story, and hopefully they're writing their own as well. I can share with you guys very honestly, and it took me a long, long time to be okay with this. When I was a high school football player, I was an average athlete at best. I worked really hard because that was a passion of mine, and I really wanted to play college football. And so as I got into my senior year in high school, I had trained really hard in the off season, and I was prepared to have a great year. And I had a pretty good year. More importantly, our team had a ton of success. And so I drew the attention of some small schools in our area. And I was invited on some recruiting trips to visit those schools. And I'll never forget the school that I ended up falling in love with, that I called home for several years after that, was a small school in Massachusetts called Springfield College. And I went on my recruiting trip to Springfield College and immediately fell in love with the place. And the football coach that took me on the tour, part of the tour was we went into the weight room. And at that particular time, Springfield College was a Division II college, and they were transitioning over to become a Division III college. And I remember being on the tour, and the coach walked me into the weight room, and the team had a team lift at the time. So I walked into the weight room, and the coach introduced me to a bunch of guys that were training, and they were, in my world at that time, as an 18-year-old kid on a recruiting trip, they were monsters. The first two guys I met, one of them still one of my closest friends to this day, his name was Jamie McGurty. Jamie was an All-American defensive end. He was 6'2", 6'3", probably weighed about 245, 250 pounds at the time. And I still remember when he shook my hand, what he said to me. He introduced himself and he said, "Hey, what position do you play?" And at the time, I was about 5'11", 6 feet, and I weighed about 185, 190 pounds. And he said he said, "Hey, what position do you play?" I said, "I'm a defensive end." And he looked at me and he said, "Wow, that's great. I'm a defensive end too." And I had a chance to meet a couple other guys that day. And the reason I share this story is because when I walked out of that weight room, I quit. That was the day that I stopped playing football. So I was the guy that walked through the halls of my high school, and I was 10 feet tall and bulletproof. I was the guy that drew enough attention from college coaches to say, "Hey, we're willing to give this kid a shot." But as I was writing my own story at the time, and I had no idea what I was doing, but as I reflect, as I look back now, as I'm very active in trying to write my own story, in that moment I quit. I quit before I even tried. And I'm somebody who, as I do work with kids and families all over this country, I share that story because it took me a long time to come to terms with the fact that I quit. And I knew in that moment that I was beaten. And throughout my life, my early 20s, and even as I'm becoming or started to become a family man, I can point to other areas of my life that I didn't finish and I didn't see things through. And one of my biggest goals in sharing this with you today is that you can look at and examine your own life and think about the things that you may want to do better, the things that you may want to see through as you write your own story. One of the biggest takeaways for me is that I've learned along this journey that so much of what we face in life is out of our control. We have to learn to deal with the stuff that is out of our control. When I say learn to deal with it, that's different than being anxious over it all the time. We didn't choose to be born where we were born. We didn't choose our families. We didn't choose our social status we were raised in. None of those things were within our control. They were all outside of our control. They all, to some degree, have shaped where we are today. But as we start to grow and get older and mature, we can begin to start to define much, much more clearly what we want our story to look like. I was born in a very strict Irish Catholic family, very regimented, full of love, support. But that's my story. That part of the story was written for me. As I've gotten older, I've learned that I am totally in control of writing my own. So I want to share with you some things that have been really helpful for me and the folks that I've had a chance to work with and meet with in terms of writing my own story. The single biggest thing that I think has helped me the most, and I hope it will help you, is this notion that change and stress are not bad words. I cannot tell you how crazy it makes me when I hear people tell me how stressed out they are. No shit. Really? You've got stress. From the time we're born, we have stress.
We're okay. A little technical difficulty.
From the time we are, hey, it happens. This is a fluid production, baby. From the time we are born, we have stress. From the time we are born, we have to adapt to change. Neither one of these are bad words, but we live in a world where if you hear the word, hey, something's going to change. For instance, in the middle of a podcast, when there are technical difficulties, oh no, everything's ruined. No, it's called a change. It's called an obstacle. Expect change, expect stress in your life. Once we accept that stress are inevitable, we can face them head on and we can work through them. There's a huge movement in this country around how educators, coaches, counselors are supposed to handle children and adults with stress. The old notion was, oh my God, when people are stressed, we need to have a place for them to calm down. We need to have a place for them to relax. We need to put our arms around them and let them know that everything's going to be okay. And to some degree, that can be helpful in the short term, but it doesn't do anything to teach people how to meet stress head on and work through it. You want to write your own story, you need to have a plan for meeting stress head on and finding a way to kick the shit out of it. Because here's the one thing that you need to know. It's never going away. It will be with us forever. Change and stress will never go away. There's an amazing woman out of New Hampshire. Her name is Lynn Lyons. Lynn Lyons is a clinical social worker, but you want to learn about how to help take stress head on. Check out the work that Lynn Lyons does all over this country around stress. She is phenomenal. And the whole blueprint, the whole script for how we're supposed to handle stress in our own lives and how to help people that we love handle stress is completely different than what we once thought it was. We don't run from it anymore. We don't ignore it. We recognize that it exists, and we meet it head on. And that's the way we work through it. You want to begin to write your own story, begin to have a really good idea of how you're going to handle stress as it comes up in your own life. The other thing that's been super helpful for me is building the courage to stand on my own 2 feet. Sometimes that means standing alone. I was definitely, and I've always been, a pretty outgoing guy, but only to the degree that I was comfortable, in the settings that I was comfortable. This podcast thing is new for me. It's an extension of the speaking I've done all across this country, but it's new. It's uncomfortable. I have met with some, as you would in any other new adventure, some skepticism, some snarks, some questions about, you really think you can do this? And the me of 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago would have stopped before I even started. But as I've worked to create the pages of my own book, my own story, as I've learned to work through stress and not run from it, I've been able to develop that courage to stand on my own 2 feet. Even if that means hearing from people that I've known for a long time that think what I'm trying to do to inspire and help others is a waste of time. That's why your continued comments, your support, your attention to this space, to this podcast, to what I'm trying to help you folks with is invaluable. Because I believe so strongly in the things that have helped me and the things that I know have helped the people and the families and the groups that I've had a chance to work with for almost 2 decades. We got to work to add value. What do I mean by that? Add value. Got to add value to other people, places, events, and challenges. Are you showing up because there's something in it for you? Or are you showing up because there's something in it for you, but you also have the opportunity to add value to somebody else's life? For me, that's the combination. For me, that's the equation. Sure, I want to have personal success. I want to be able to be significant in my work. But I want to be able to enter situations. I want to be able to enter conversations. I want to be able to enter challenges and events. And I want to be able to add value. You want to write your own story. You want to leave that legacy. Think about how you can add value to interactions that you have with people, places, and things in your life that you have a chance to be a part of. The other thing that has been unbelievably helpful for me is I've become very selective and careful where and from whom I seek advice and guidance. Because everybody out there is going to talk to you based on their perspective. This podcast right now comes from my lens, as well as 20 years of work, research in the field. But at the end of the day, it's the view by which I see it. Some of this stuff will work for you, some of it may not. But I have become really, really careful and selective in who I have intentionally seek advice and guidance from. because as we talked about in a past episode, I can't go seek guidance from people who don't have similar goals as me. You can't expect somebody to share your vision that doesn't have your goals. So what we do a lot of times in our life, guys, is we go seek guidance from people that are going to make us feel good in the moment, but that won't do shit to help us in the long run. I want to have tough conversations with people. I want to talk to people that are going to question what I share with them. I have an idea about the podcast. I have an idea about a presentation I'm going to do next week on a college campus for a team and an athletic organization. I want to talk to people not that are going to tell me what I want to hear, but I want to talk to people that have the same or better vision, goals, and drive that I have, because they're going to keep it real. They're not going to tell me what I want to hear. They're going to tell me what I need to hear. And that leads me to my last sort of piece, which is you have to start to define who the actors are in your story. Who's playing what part, and how does that part help you grow? How does your role in this story help them grow? Hopefully those are the same people that you seek advice and guidance from, and hopefully those are the same people that seek guidance and advice from you. So I'm very, very intentional about who the actors are in my story. There are absolutely no questions about who I choose to allow as regular fixtures in my life and the life of my family, and there shouldn't be for you either. I want to share a quick story to wrap with you on perspective. We talk about writing our own story, and we talk a lot about perspective, but I want to share a story with you that I think will pull at your heartstrings, but I think will also give you the sense that there's a lot of people out there that are writing their own story as well, and sometimes we don't know what we don't know. So it's more important to stay in our own lane and continue to fill the pages of our book with the stuff that means the most to us, and understand that we all have the ability, the talents, the strengths, and the gifts to not only write a beautiful story for ourselves, but to allow others to do the same. There was a young boy who was on a train with his parents, and he was looking out the window. And he was 24 years old. He was not a little boy anymore. He was 24, so he'd lived almost 25 years on this earth. But as he's on the train, and they're heading on a trip with his parents, he's looking out the window, and he starts yelling, "Dad, Dad, the trees are going by us so fast. The clouds are moving by the train so fast." There was a young couple sitting nearby, and they were looking at this 24-year-old, and they're thinking to themselves, why is this man talking about how quickly the trees are going by and how quickly the clouds are going by? So at some point, the couple just couldn't resist every comment this 24-year-old was making, and they said to this couple, "Why don't you take your son to a good doctor?" To imply that there was something seriously wrong with this man at 24 years old if he was talking about the trees running by the train and the clouds running by the train. So this couple said to this man's parents, "You really need to take your son to a good doctor." The parents looked at this couple and they said, "I did. We're just coming back from the hospital, actually. My son was blind from birth, but he just got his eyes today." Remember, folks, every person on this planet has a story. I want your story to be the one that you create. I want your story to be one that not only inspires you to get up every day, but inspires others to get up every day and to win their day. Thank you so much. As always, please like, share, and comment if you like what you heard today. I'm so grateful to have you tuning in and listening. Go out and get what's yours today. It's your boy, Johnny Martin, signing off. Win today. Thank you to Seven Roads Media and Cloud9 Marketing Group for co-producing the show. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe on whatever platform you're on. Without you, I cannot continue to do what I love. You can follow me personally on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Real John C. Martin. I'd love to hear from you, so please reach out with comments and questions after each episode. Your comments push me to get better every day. As always, thank you for your continued support, and don't forget, Win today.